Welcome to the Political Trenches, Local Government at Work. Our guest today is Kathy Valentino, a city councillor from Thompson, Manitoba, and the president of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, who believes strongly in the power and importance of local governance. With over 10 years of experience on the City of Thompson Council, including 6 years as deputy mayor, Kathy advocates for focusing on the basics that truly serve communities. In addition to her political background, Kathy has worked in the financial industry for the past 29 years. She emphasizes that local governments are the best equipped to address fundamental issues such as improving public safety, investing in infrastructure, and fostering stronger relations with Indigenous people in the spirit of reconciliation. Now, Kathy and I have known each other for a few years now, and I know she is an avid hockey fan, even though I will not hold it against her that her team is arch rivals of my team. But we're not here to talk about hockey. We're here to talk about politics. And she enjoys spending time at her family cottage at Paint Lake, Manitoba. Kathy, welcome to the Political Trenches.
Welcome to you. That was a great intro. I loved it. Good data.
Kathy, to kick off, I'm going to start with one question, then we're going to throw it over to Ian. How would you describe the state of municipalities in the province of Manitoba in 2025?
Well, 17 days in, we still got a lot of 2025 ahead of us. So as AMM, we're already building off of 2024 still, and the priorities that we led with in 2024, we're continuing into 2025. I think that our priorities, and you did kind of hit it on the nose with me, I'm a little bit more of a let's get back to basics with what municipalities need. And I think the core basics is what needs to be paid attention to. And that goes to public safety, infrastructure, healthcare, investing in people, and obviously a different funding model or a funding model that is a little bit more inclusive to all municipalities, not on these per capita basis. So I'm a little bit focused on back to basics, and that's a priority. And we're starting to hear that message already as we started our municipality tours this year.
I'll jump in on that, I can, if I do. I was going to ask you a little bit about the basics, but I'm also interested in the state of governance in Manitoba. But you just made a reference to things like housing, which are often not considered local in the bailiwick of local government, but local government ends up dealing with them anyway. Well, what's the state of clarity around roles in Manitoba versus the province's role, the feds' roles, and then the local government's roles as well?
Sure. So when we talk about specific housing, say like a housing crisis or an affordable housing in Manitoba, one of the holdbacks that municipalities are seeing and able to create housing is our deficit in Manitoba for water and wastewater infrastructure. There's about 300 shovel-ready projects. It's about a $1.6 billion price tag now, and that continually grows. So our municipalities are struggling with having to have housing projects when they don't have the water and wastewater to support that kind of growth. So it's you can't do one without the other. So that's a real struggle. And it's one of our strong advocacy points is there has to be some kind of an infrastructure funding model for water and wastewater projects. And I just speak specifically to Manitoba. I know that's a national thing. Our province did recently, in the last couple of days, unveil a homelessness strategy where they do have a mandate from the Premier to end homelessness. And they now have a strategy where they are going to start working with encampments and getting people off the streets and into housing. So I think that when we talk about where government is with housing, there's lots of different facets when we say the word housing. It's the housing for homelessness, the affordable housing, it's the growth in municipalities that need housing. So housing means a lot of things. So that's a little bit of where we're at with our infrastructure deficit for housing.
Sure. Thanks. You made a reference to some changes rolled out by the provincial government. Have you noticed much change with the Canoe government versus the previous government in terms of the relationship between local governments and the province?
They're 1 year into government, so we still, use the new government term and into building relationships and getting to know them and what their roles are. He did have a little bit of a shuffling of a few ministers right before Christmas. So I do see they're working very hard, and they have in their first year in government in reaching out and getting themselves out into municipalities and into places to get to know people and get people to know them. They did quite a big outreach in their first, I think it was probably 5 or 6 months. I could be wrong on the term when they got elected. So now when we move into this spring coming budget, I think municipalities now are going to really pay attention to what the budget is going to be. And now that they've done the relationships and the outreach, where are we at? What's our budget looking at? What's a little bit of the outcome now with the government?
Sure, thanks. Just looking now more generally, what do you think? So our local governments across the country are different in different provinces. What do you think other local governments across Canada can learn from what's happening in Manitoba at the moment? Is there anything that you think Manitoba does really well, or maybe notes of caution?
I do think that Manitoba is very good on their steps to reconciliation, and that is under our premier, and it's a mandate, and it's something I'm fortunate with in the city of Thompson that we work towards all the time, being in a city that is over 50% Indigenous. So I do believe that Manitoba and the province of Manitoba does that very well, and I believe that we are a little bit ahead of the game across Canada with steps to reconciliation and inclusion and working with our First Nation leadership and with our partners.
Okay, thanks. You are obviously the president of AMM. What made you decide to get involved in the first place?
I was on the AMM board as a board of directors, maybe 6 years ago, and then I became vice president. So it was something I love to do. It was kind of a natural step for me. I certainly enjoyed the leadership of past President Blight and working with him. So it was something, yeah, I have a real passion for this. And I think that it's pretty neat that somebody from Northern Manitoba, first time ever, could actually be the president of a provincial association. So I'm pretty proud of the North that we were able to make this happen.
So what's different about AMM by the end of the term of President Valentino?
So I got a little bit of razzing about this when Chris asked me a little bit during the election, when I said that I was different from past President Blight because I was a softer approach. And then afterwards I was like, what does that mean? So I do I feel like my strength is on relationship building and an open line of communication. And it's something through the beginning of our municipality tours this year already that I have said it's very important to me that we have open lines of communication and that I get to know municipal leaders in these next 2 years. I think that we can be stronger when we know each other, and we're stronger together when we know what works and what doesn't work. And everybody always is a little bit different, and I completely understand what it feels like to be living remote, rural, and outside the perimeter of Winnipeg. And I know when that's frustrating and how you feel. So I'm big on networking and making sure that there's a connection. And I hope that that would be something that I could leave behind whenever I'm done doing this gig, that it's really important that we know who we represent. We know those people, and we understand their challenges, because everybody owns their own municipality so clear to their heart, and that's so important to me.
Do you see different fundamental issues happening for local government, say for a citizen in downtown Winnipeg versus downtown Thompson, or are their needs kind of consistent?
It's so interesting you say that, because when we do these tours, there's common themes at the end of them that seem to be there. Are they at different magnitudes and different sizes? Absolutely. We hear about healthcare. Well, that's totally different from downtown Winnipeg than it is, maybe not in Thompson, but say in the PA or very small municipalities. So I think some of the big differences is that small municipalities who have a small population but have a huge land mass that they're responsible for have very unique challenges, and like per capita funding, stuff like that doesn't really work for them. And I really see that there's a difference. So City of Winnipeg, small Main Street municipalities, may have same issues, but the magnitude or how the money is dispersed for them is totally different, and a total different challenge for them.
Okay. Speaking of challenges, we've seen a significant change about to happen down south with what's going on with the new administration in the States. We're seeing upheaval with the Canadian federal government as well. Are you seeing any, or do you predict any impact of those changes on Manitoba municipalities, either in uncertainty or in things that you might be trying to do something about?
Right. So I obviously can't speak on what our provincial government is looking at. That's for them to speak to. But I do know that we've heard from some municipalities, they do have concerns about the border. They have concerns about changing border hours. There's concerns about federally setting more RCMP resources on the border, which is a concern because municipalities, I hear, really struggle with the lack of RCMP presence within their own municipalities. So there's a concern that there'd be more on borders to protect borders when they want their streets and their municipalities safe. So the border, I think, is more of a issue. I think we're not very lucky, but our premier is very attuned to what's going on, and we have some good relationships. Because I speak from a mining community with our critical mineral approach in Manitoba. We are unique and wealthy in minerals. So I think that's a benefit for us moving forward. And we also have the ability in Manitoba to have a real, we can, export the Churchill port to the ocean, to our Americans in the south, east and west center of Canada. So Manitoba is unique in that way. And I think we're very fortunate in that way with all the political landscapes changing south of us and federally.
Cool. So I'm going to just wrap up my part of the this time here. We're just going kind of really back to basics. You talked a little bit about your role with AMM. We talked about your role more broadly than that. But what was it that made you decide you wanted to run for city council in Thompson way back when?
Yes, this is my third term because I was born and raised in Thompson, and I love it. And I love to make a difference. I lived in my household where my mom was always involved in everything, so it was just a natural thing that you have to give back. And I preach that to my three boys. We have to give back to a community that raised us and did so much for us. So I love it, and I love being able to give back and advocate for challenges and trying to get solutions. And it's not easy, but man, is it rewarding, and the people are amazing.
Well, actually, I do have one more quick follow-up, and that is there obviously has to be some grace on the part of your council colleagues in Thompson for you to do the work that you're doing. I don't know if you want to comment on that support you get from your colleagues.
Absolutely. I have the greatest mayor. She's amazing. And I have a great council this term. They're great to work with. And we are very attuned to Zoom. And I appreciate AMM, and we always work around our schedules. So we work together, my two vice presidents and myself, so that we can, make sure that they are good with attending stuff for their council, and I am also. And I'm always home on weekends. I still sell 50/50s at the hockey games and do it, what I can. And so, yeah, I very much not only appreciate the council's support, but our administration team is key also. So it works, and it's been working well. So it's great.
Thanks, Kathy.
I'm going to jump in now, President Valentino. And you talked while Ian was chatting with you about the current tour that you're on. And that tour you're on is currently with Grieve Brad Sullick from the RM at Brokenhead, Councillor Scott Phillips, who is both your VPs, Brad and Scott are both your VPs of AMM, from the RM of Sifton. When you're talking to your members, because I know we met in Winnipeg for your most recent AMM, are there things that you're hearing that didn't come up at the AMM convention that you're hearing more in those one-on-one settings individually with those local councillors and mayors and reeves?
Sure. So just to give you a little bit how that works is there's 137 municipalities in Manitoba. So every municipality will get a visit from the AMM executive in a 4-year cycle. So we commonly hear, oh, nobody's come to see us. We haven't had a visit in a long time, but there may have been a municipal election within that 4 years. So that's how we know where we're going every year. So we've done the Eastern District and we've done Interlake so far this year. And they provide an agenda of items that they want to speak to us. It is their meeting when we meet with them. So whatever they want to bring up, we will comment on, we will try to support, give them ideas, maybe if we know of a funding opportunity or if they're struggling. So they always have something that's unique. Had a visit with a municipality that wants our support because they're going to put their town in for Hockeyville, Craft Hockeyville. We had another one that actually had dissolved their council and they're all brand new as of a by-election. And they have some really good feedback on maybe process or code of conduct review. So that was something different. So there is always something different besides, your four basics, public safety, infrastructure, healthcare. Absolutely there is. We see some municipalities that are growing so fast, say like a Steinbach or a LaBroquerie, that's a huge set of different challenges than some that are not, which has some really unique challenges money-wise. So you always hear something different. That's why it's so valuable that we take the time to do this.
I've chatted with many of your member communities, and I know the challenges that they're facing. When you do go out to these member communities and do this tour of meeting with all members in that 4-year cycle, what does AMM do with that information after you're done? Because I know that in Swan River with Mayor Jacobson, they're dealing with a lot of harm reduction right now, where if you go talk to the RM of Springfield, hypothetically, I know they're dealing with a lot of negativity towards council. So what does AMM do with that information after you go chat with them? Because I'm assuming it just doesn't sit on a table somewhere.
That's right. And that's something that I explain in each visit. So we take the notes back from each municipality visit and whatever kind of like those common themes, those notes are. And then the executive has minister meetings that they do throughout the year. So those issues we move to minister meetings along with the resolutions that we have to advocate for from all members based on the November convention. And then our board of directors has advocacy days coming up where they meet with deputy ministers or ministers or assistant deputy ministers, where they are also briefed on all of the issues. So that's another opportunity that we get in front of government about the issues that we hear. So those are the two avenues to government that we use based on these things. Obviously, one-offs that do come up. Like I think I had said, if municipalities email ministers or whatever departments and CC us, then as an organization, we can see the reply back from the minister or the minister's department. So then we're aware of those issues, or if we have a different contact or whatever kind of support we can offer that way also.
One of the big things I heard at the AMM convention, and I've recently had the pleasure of sitting down with two of your member communities for an upcoming episode of the Cross Border Interviews, is infrastructure funding, infrastructure funding, infrastructure funding. I know we are on recording this on January 17th, and I can imagine the AMM plus member municipalities are bending the ears of their local MLAs right now with a provincial budget potentially coming out in the next few months. What are you hoping to hear from the provincial government around infrastructure funding as we head into this year of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, money would be the easiest answer to that, but who doesn't, right? So I think it's kind of like housing. It's like infrastructure has lots of components to it. So, and I said before, like that 1.6 billion, there's got to be a stream for water and wastewater infrastructure, a program that also has to be in conjunction with the federal government, because our province can't just unveil a $1.6 billion water and wastewater infrastructure program. We also hear for, some smaller and for municipalities of all sizes, infrastructure also means highways, and they want their, certain highways done or fixed, or the infrastructure that's provincial through their main streets they want fixed, and they want infrastructure, they want better maintenance issues on the provincial drainage and the damage that comes from the lack of infrastructure from flooding. So infrastructure means a lot of different kinds and different needs for municipalities. I would say the biggest one is the water and wastewater infrastructure. Somehow we have to, the province and the federal government has to unveil a new level of a funding program for that.
Just to interject, do you think the province is hearing you? Because I know that your members were very vocal at the Winnipeg Convention when Mr. Premier Canoe and the ministers were at that on the stage. Do you think the Premier and the ministers have heard municipalities' concerns around these issues?
I think they have heard us, yep. I do. I mean, I have to have faith that they do or that they have heard us. They know. I mean, they want our province to grow, and if you can't get like some of our fastest growing municipalities in Canada per capita are in Manitoba right now, with the Winklers and Niverville and Richot and like Steinbach. So they know, and if they want to benefit, they have to get these municipalities to keep growing, and if that means an investment into water and wastewater infrastructure projects, it has to happen.
Now, along with your role as president of AMM, you're also I'm going to make sure I'm getting this right, the second vice president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which I'm just going to say it kind of makes you the most powerful female politician in municipal world in Manitoba in 2025 because you sit on both big boards. You are
Wow.
currently, as of
Wow.
recording this, that's what I'm saying. As of recording this, you are on your way to Africa or learning about an upcoming trip to Africa, in your role of as FCM, second vice president, but also in your role as president of AMM. Can you explain what this trip is all about and what you hope to achieve when you're in Africa?
Sure. So it's a little bit two parts. So it's an FCM program that works with 5 countries, typically about and supporting women in municipal leadership roles. I'm going through Association of Manitoba Municipalities the president, and our focus will be on working on strategic planning and the financial accountability and ability that associations have and how we kind of structure ours here in Manitoba. So that's kind of our role. When you say learning, I am learning. Today we're in meetings with women and men also who have and are working already with those other countries and their partners. Some of them are working on gender inequality and how to get the equality of having females be a part of municipal leaders in countries. It's very difficult, and we aren't professionals or experts in the knowledge of this because Canada is behind in having women municipal leaders kind of be equal to what the amount of for men. So I can give you more of an update when I get back. I'm completely honored, and I think it will definitely humble me to be able to help and to be able to offer what I know about barriers for women in municipal politics, or just that, barriers for women and leaders in whatever they may be, not necessarily just in politics. It's different. So I'll definitely give you an update when I get back on how it looks and what I've learned, because I have a feeling that I'm going to learn more probably than what I can give. So it's going to be pretty valuable.
We will hold you to that, and when you get back, we'll have that follow-up discussion. But before I ask my last question, I have one final question because we are now in 2025, and that means you are more than halfway through this current term of council. Your last elections were in 2022. Your next elections are next year, 2026. What is AMM doing to encourage more people to get involved? And I say people in general because there's an apathy when it comes to getting involved in municipal politics in this country. And I don't know if you see that in Manitoba, but I can imagine you're trying to find people to run so we don't, not that acclamations aren't great, but you don't have a large swath of acclamations that we saw in Saskatchewan or Ontario.
So I think we're a little bit too far out yet where I can say what AMM is doing. Typically in election years, we do have like an election handbook and try to have an education component about running, or if people are interested in running. I know right after a municipal election, it's one of the first things we do at our fall convention is education and training for newly elected to try and help. I do believe in there has been conversation about how do we get how do we really educate people about running and for them to understand what it actually means and what exactly your role is. And that goes to, reviewing code of conducts. Like we maybe need to educate better beforehand. Maybe it will help with some of the issues that we hear amongst councils now. I don't know, but we can only try.
Awesome. So my final question is, in continuing to talk about the future, what does the future for municipalities in Manitoba look like?
I would hope that the future of municipalities in Manitoba looks for economic growth, because I hear so much growth that's going on. And I think that, friendly Manitoba is open for business. So I think our municipalities have a real opportunity to grow and our economy can grow. I also think that Manitoba municipalities are on the path to working hard and following on that path to reconciliation and working with leadership and working more on regional approaches and being stronger together that way.
President Kathy, President Valentino, my friend, thank you so much from both Ian and myself for joining us in the political trenches today. It's always a pleasure to sit down with anyone from Manitoba, and you're no exception to that. So thank you so much.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kev.